When people say Asian tigers, it sounds like one story. Taiwan, South Korea, Hong Kong, Singapore, fast growth, export economies, Asian success stories. But the strange thing is this: one accidentally became the center of the AI world. The other built some of the world's biggest brands. Both became rich, but both may now be paying the price. The longer you spend around Taiwan and South Korea, the less similar they feel. Taiwan feels flexible, improvised, and strangely low profile for such an important economy. South Korea feels intense, polished, and globally visible. One became indispensable to the global technology system. The other became impossible to ignore. And today, I want to talk about how Taiwan and South Korea slowly evolved into two completely different models of modern Asian success, and the trade-offs both societies made to get there. The term Asian tigers became popular in the 1980s. Western economists noticed four East Asian economies growing much faster than expected: Taiwan, South Korea, Hong Kong, Singapore. All four shared several things: high savings rates, strong investment in education, export-driven economies, governments willing to actively shape industrial development. For several years, people often talked about them almost as a package, but underneath the surface, they were already moving in different directions. And over the last 30 years, Taiwan and South Korea may have diverged the most, because they optimized for different things. Taiwan optimized for industrial depth. South Korea optimized for scale and visibility. That difference changed almost everything. And what is fascinating is that both paths reached global importance at almost the same time, but in completely different ways. Around the same time, TSMC was becoming Taiwan's greatest competitive moat, and eventually one of the most strategically important companies in the world. Hallyu, the Korean wave, was spreading across the globe. K-pop, Korean dramas, Korean beauty, Korean fashion. Taiwan became essential infrastructure for the AI age. South Korea became a global cultural force. One became deeply embedded inside the world's machines. The other embedded itself inside the world's imagination. Let's start with Taiwan. For a long time, Taiwan did not look particularly glamorous. Compared with Japan, Singapore, or South Korea, Taiwan often felt less organized. The urban planning looked messier. The buildings looked older. The infrastructure felt uneven. Even globally, Taiwan had weaker branding power. Most consumers outside Asia could name Samsung. Much fewer could name Taiwanese companies beyond Acer or Asus. But Taiwan spent decades becoming extremely good at something the average consumer never sees: industrial coordination, supply chain depth, precision manufacturing, engineering execution. Taiwan built thousands of small and medium-sized companies that became deeply embedded inside the global technology system. Not flashy consumer brands, invisible infrastructure. This was a very different path from Korea. Korea focused heavily on building national champions. Taiwan built ecosystems. In many ways, Taiwan became rich by helping other companies become famous: Apple, nvidia, AMD, Qualcomm, Amazon, Google. Behind many of them sits a massive Taiwanese manufacturing network, and for years most people barely noticed. Then AI arrived. Suddenly, semiconductors became the center of the global economy, and Taiwan found itself sitting on one of the most important bottlenecks in modern technology. TSMC became one of the most strategically important companies in the world. But here's the interesting part. Taiwan did not specifically predict the AI boom 30 years in advance. What Taiwan really did was spend decades positioning itself inside the deepest parts of the technology supply chain. The AI boom simply rewarded that position enormously. The world spent years focusing on software platforms, apps, and consumer internet companies. Then AI reminded everyone of something old-fashioned: None of this works without hardware, and hardware depends on manufacturing. Taiwan benefited from something very unusual. It became indispensable without becoming culturally dominant. That gave Taiwan huge economic importance, but also created trade-offs. Because while Taiwan became incredibly strong industrially, many parts of society developed more unevenly. Wages stagnated for years. Housing became expensive in Taipei. Urban aesthetics often lagged behind Korea or Singapore. Taiwan became globally critical faster than it became globally confident. Taiwan optimized for industrial resilience first, prestige second. And over the next 30 years, Taiwan's challenge may be this. Can it move beyond being the world's critical supplier? Can it build stronger global consumer influence, stronger domestic confidence, and broader prosperity outside semiconductors? Because concentrating too much national success into one industry creates its own kind of vulnerability. South Korea took a very different path. Korea industrialized through concentration. Chaebol, large family-controlled conglomerates that dominate major sectors of the economy. Large ambition, large national coordination. Samsung, Hyundai, LG, SK. The Korean model focused heavily on creating globally recognized national champions, and in many ways it worked brilliantly. South Korea transformed itself from a poor country after the Korean War into one of the world's most advanced economies within a few generations. The infrastructure became world-class. The cities became modern and dense. The brands became globally recognizable. And eventually, Korea succeeded at something even harder. It became culturally influential. Korean entertainment, beauty, fashion, and media spread across the world. Korea mastered emotional exports. Taiwan exported infrastructure. Korea exported aspiration. That difference matters, because global visibility creates a very different kind of national identity. But the Korean system also came with heavy pressure. South Korea did not only industrialize its economy, it industrialized ambition itself. Students compete intensely. Work culture became highly hierarchical. Housing pressure increased. Social expectations became extremely demanding. And over time, the country started showing signs of exhaustion, including a persistently high suicide rate that reflects deeper social strain. South Korea now has one of the world's lowest birth rates. At some point, extremely low birth rates stop looking like demographics. They start looking like feedback. Many young people openly describe modern life as emotionally overwhelming. The country succeeded economically, but maintaining that success created enormous social pressure. And then there is politics. Without getting ideological, one pattern stands out very clearly. South Korean politics often becomes highly confrontational and emotionally intense. Presidents regularly leave office under investigation, scandal, or imprisonment. This is not simply about individual politicians, it reflects something deeper. Very rapid modernization creates pressure inside institutions too. The pace of Korean development was so fast that the political system often struggled to stabilize emotionally at the same speed as the economy. And over the next 30 years, Korea's challenge may become less about growth itself. Korea already knows how to grow. The harder question is whether the system can become emotionally sustainable. Can Korea maintain competitiveness while reducing social exhaustion? Can younger generations still believe the pressure is worth it? Because Korea may have succeeded so hard that ordinary life started feeling difficult to maintain. The deeper difference between Taiwan and Korea is not simply economics. It is philosophy. Taiwan built strength quietly. Korea built visibility aggressively. Taiwan became indispensable to the global technology supply chain. Korea became impossible to ignore. Taiwan often feels decentralized, flexible, improvised. Korea feels coordinated, structured, intense. Even their companies reflect this difference. Taiwan's economy is filled with specialized suppliers and engineering ecosystems. Korea's economy revolves around giant flagship corporations. Neither model is objectively superior. Both created wealth, both created trade-offs, and both are now entering a more difficult phase. Building prosperity is one challenge. Maintaining social confidence after prosperity is another. So what is the takeaway? Taiwan and South Korea both became successful, but they answered different questions. Taiwan asked, how do we become indispensable to the global economy? South Korea asked, how do we become globally recognized? And over the next 30 years, the real question may no longer be which model grows faster. It may be which model people still want to live inside. One quick aside, this is my personal take. If you see things differently, trust your own view. I am here to share a perspective, not a verdict. I am curious. Which model feels more sustainable to you long term? Taiwan's quieter industrial model or Korea's high visibility national champion model? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next one.